morning, everyone.
Morning.
So we've gone through all 5. Whew, what a long haul, huh? I've got so many other things that I feel like God's telling us that we need to start learning foundations for. So as much as I love teaching this, I'm glad that we're coming to the end. Next time we get together, we'll do an activation, which will be really good because as we've been going through this, I'm sure a few of you have been able to identify, yeah, I'm definitely that. And I wonder about this, and some might have been like, I don't know where I fit yet. So the activation will help a lot because it'll just naturally kind of push you into the place that you are. And you're like, oh, that's why I respond that way. So we're going to be covering the shepherd now, getting over this one, and then we'll do the activation next time. So first we're going to do a review again like we always tend to do. It's a quote from Alan Hirsch, which is the guy who kind of just put this whole thing together because he realized that there were gifts and everyone was operating, but they weren't free to operate in the acknowledgement of their gift within the congregation. So it says, he said, I believe that the ecclesia that Jesus intended was specifically designed with built-in self-generative capacities and was made for nothing less than world transformation, lasting and, yes, revolutionary impact. We were never meant to settle down and become a civil religion. So Ephesians 4:11 through 16, he gave some apostles, some prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers for the equipping of the saints, for the work of the service, to the building up of the body of Christ, until we all attain to the unity of faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to a mature man, to the measure of the stature which belongs to the fullness of Christ. As a result, we are no longer to be children tossed here and there by waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by the trickery of men, by craftiness and deceitful scheming. But speaking the truth in love, we are to grow in all aspects into him who is the head, even Christ, from whom the whole body, being fitted and held together by what every joint supplies, according to the proper working of each individual part, causes the growth of the body for the building up of itself in love. That's our core verse and passage in this whole teaching that we're doing. Ephesians 4:7, to each one. That word is hekasto, which we've talked about before, which means to each and every person. Can someone read Ephesians 4, verse 8, please? Out loud, not in your head. We'd like to hear it. Ephesians 4:8.
Therefore he says, when he ascended on high, he led captivity captive and gave gifts to men.
So that's the thing we've been hearing over and over again, the phrase, he gave gift to men. And that word, if you have a fill-in, I believe you do, says mankind, right?
Yeah.
Okay, mankind. He gave gifts to mankind.
What was the first one?
To each and every person, the hekasto. Ephesians 4:7, to each one is to each and every person. And then the second fill-in is he gave gifts to men. Ephesians was a book written to everyone, not just to leadership team, everyone in the congregation. Ephesians list is a DNA list. There's 3 things we need to remember. The gift list in Ephesians is from the Greek word kalesis, which means calling or surname.
Calling or what?
Calling or surname, the fill-in. This differs from other biblical gift lists that are about how the Spirit manifests through us or how we act. It's after the order of creation, not after the order of redemption. The second thing we need to remember is it is the saints that equip the saints. This is made clear by the using of the word each one of us in verse 7, which means to each and every person. And this is also made clear by the words held together by what every joint supplies and building up of itself in verse 16. Comes your next fill-in. The seed of gifting doesn't constitute leadership. That's been a problem. We've seen a lot of people who proclaim themselves as prophets and they take over a church. Or someone who proclaims himself as evangelist and they decide to head up the whole evangelistic team. Just because you may have a gift in one or two of the fivefold, it doesn't constitute leadership or title. we all equip each other within the structure of authority that God so obviously sets up. Let us go over the different maturity levels of a shepherd. Now we're going to be moving into the shepherd. The mature shepherd is a cultivator, prepares and develops something to grow. They support the full spectrum of the intimate experience of emotions in life. The self-focused shepherd, or the more immature shepherd, the self-focused shepherd, they're enablers. They don't want to hurt emotions by saying the hard things. In a season where this is tough, with abortion issues for the side of women, or for those in homosexual lifestyles that feel like they were born that way, friends that said, I didn't choose this, and who would say, what, you're the weirdo. Okay, so what we're saying is,
the fill-in is enablers?
the fill-in is enabler, yes. The self-focused shepherd is one that will just kind of let you do what you want to do because they don't want to confront or address the issue. That's a real struggle for shepherds because they have so much heart, but it can get led astray pretty quickly. Another self-focused shepherd attitude or response would be controlling. They can use a form of shaming by using hard emotions against others as they feel out of control to know how to handle pain. You see this a lot in church splits when the church is predominantly run by a shepherd and someone has a different view, and the shepherd will be like, well, we're not going to run it that way. And then they decide to talk to everyone else, and people leave, and the shepherd gets hard. And he gets his feelings hurt, and so he doesn't know how to deal with that, which leads him to, well, you guys stay away from that group, they're wolves. It's very possessive. Shepherds tend to get really possessive when they're not fully matured. They call it my flock, and they don't let people intermingle when there's gatherings of multiple churches. They're like, no, we're not going to that one. And that's why you see multiple churches on the corners, especially in downtown St. Louis. There's a church here, a church here, a church here. Like, oh, now you know they're all viewing it as their flock instead of the flock of God that they've been given responsibility to care for.
What was the fill-in for other focus? I missed it myself.
Controlling. Yep, controlling. So we have to watch the emotions. If you're a shepherd, you're going to have a lot of feeling. That's the thing that I also tend to deal with because I'm prophet shepherd, is that the shepherd will feel a lot and take on a lot of what someone else is feeling and take it on as our own, which will give us the struggle and the turmoil. And at night we'll be up wondering and worrying and all this stuff. Well, how are we going to fix this problem? It's still that person's problem. And that's where healthy boundaries come in, and that's how a shepherd can mature, is work on healthy boundaries. A lot of times when I talk to people who are shepherds and like, man, I don't know what to do about this person. They're just not doing it, and I can't get them to help. They fall apart. It's like, that's their problem. That's their problem. That's their life. Love them, care for them, support them, help them out the best you can. But when you leave mentally, emotionally. Pray for them all the time, but don't take the burden on yourself because it will wear you down. Next thing you know is you have everyone else's burdens that you can't care for yourself. It's like on an airplane, when the airbags drop, the mask, they say put them on yourself first. Shepherds can be so busy putting the mask on everyone else that they forget to put the mask on themselves, and then they're not healthy. Emotionally and physically sometimes you have breakdowns. Spiritually, they're open to all kinds of demonic attacks. One word description, back to the fivefold descriptions. We're talking one word description of the fivefold that might help bring some additional clarity. Fill-ins. Apostolic is sending. The prophetic is directing. Evangelistic is capturing. You're going to capture those people. Catch them. Bring them in. Teaching. Keeping them and not losing them. Shepherd is loving. And there's been an epidemic in the Western culture, and I think it might be worldwide. I'm trying to think, like, when we went to Barbados, I think it was still evident there. And and other places we've visited, but it's like every leader in the church is the pastor, the shepherd. And that puts a lot of pressure on that person, because if they're not the shepherd, then they have to act like the shepherd. And then it's forced and it's not healthy. And the shepherd, who is the shepherd of the church, feels the pressure to have to be the shepherd for everyone, versus realizing he's just a part or she's just a part, and that there are other shepherds in the midst that you can have a team. You know, churches should have teams of people. There should be teams of the prophetic. There should be teams of the evangelist, the shepherd, the teacher, apostle. All those should be teams of people that get together and pray and say, you know, what is God showing us for our congregation? What's God showing us for this region? How can we bring us all, you know, to jointly fit together to really bring a greater impact to this region? Because we're all called to impact everything besides just ourselves and our local body, because we all bring something to the table. So did I miss a fill-in, or are we good? Loving, you got loving for shepherd, right? Okay. So we have unfortunately dubbed everyone in the church as the pastor. We feel it is better to call this shepherd because pastors have taken the title of headship in the church, and not all church heads are shepherds. Okay, so there's a communication breakdown. We think everyone's a shepherd in the church, but there's pastors and there's shepherds and all that thing. So pastor/shepherd. Creating empathetic community. Shepherd is known as the nurturer. If you're a shepherd, this is what you're going to feel. You're going to have nurturing within you. When you see someone, you're just going to kind of ache for them. It's also probably because God has equipped shepherds with high empathy, which is sometimes hard to deal with if you're empathetic, but that means you're a shepherd. I'm really high on empathy, surprisingly, which it's weird when you're prophet and shepherd, because there's this inner struggle, and it sometimes can leak out on people. Yeah, a little bit, right? Right. So the shepherd is a nurturer. Strong empathetic aptitudes, heightened capacity for meaningful friendships. The most vulnerable and most insignificant ones matter to the shepherds. Social cement, tend to care for hospital visits, inclusive, accepting of all. What kind of a job do you think a shepherd would lean towards? If someone was a shepherd in the secular realm, what kind of jobs do you think they would have? Huh?
I'm going to say that too, nurse.
Nurse? Okay.
Funeral director.
How is that?
Having empathy on people who are vulnerable at that time.
Good point.
You know, look at this. We're all a bunch of sheeple, right? Sheep people. A shepherd is a sheep herder.
Mm-hmm.
So he's herding in the sheeple in a roundabout way. Kind of weird
Okay.
name to
No,
put it,
good.
but that's really pretty much what it is. So
Okay.
if you go back to the word, a person who is in the funeral business, he's trying to help that person,
Sure.
empathy, not sympathy, but empathy, get through that situation.
Sure. Okay.
Counselor or psychiatrist.
Social worker.
Social worker, yeah. Psychiatrist, huh? Teacher, okay.
I think one of
Project manager, says Glenn, the project manager.
Except we heard cats.
one of my friends who's like very, very, very heavy shepherd has always her whole life worked in like an elderly home, taking care of all of those people, like even for the pay that she's not, deserving. She just loves it.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Anything else?
Caregivers.
Caregivers, yeah, absolutely.
You're not a shepherd.
What do you guys think about law enforcement?
I think it depends.
Very.
Could be.
You could be prophet, you could be shepherd. Two different roads, but the
I think it
same.
could even be apostolic, like seeing the big picture of like, I need to go out there and make a difference because laws are being broken and people are being taken advantage of, and I'm gonna go out there and that's why I'm gonna do it, because I'm
Right.
gonna make this big picture right when it's really messed up.
I think an EMT more than a policeman. Being the daughter of a cop, I don't see that so much in my dad, so.
Sure, you can be different. You can have different callings and still be
Yeah.
law enforcement.
Yeah.
From my standpoint, I was always wanting to be in law enforcement, and just God always called me to different things. But the prophetic side of me is, it's the law. Do it. You're breaking the law. Don't do it.
That would be my
But the
dad.
shepherd side is, I want to protect those people that are getting beat up or robbed or abused or stealing from somebody else. So there's that like a sheepdog, like the sheepdog kind of thing. You're not going to hurt my people kind of a thing. So there's the shepherd side that we think is often very tender and caring and coddling and loving. But there's also a shepherd side that's also very ferocious.
Well, that would be my dad.
Fierce. Yeah, right. So the fierceness is also a shepherd side that we tend to not give much credit to, but Yeshua is very fierce to his people. He protects them violently. David says, you come up off of your throne to come and fight for me.
Think about David, the shepherd king. What did he do?
Right.
He literally
Absolutely.
fought lions and bears.
Right.
That is no small feat.
Right. Yeah.
So could the shepherd be also called to cull?
What?
Cull. You can cull a flock. You're the one who cuts off things because they're.
Yeah, I would think so. Again, I mean, anyone with one of the fivefold gifts could do that for different reasons. Like for a prophet, they'd be like, no, because it's wrong. For the shepherd, it's like, no, you're hurting people. The apostolic is, no, you're not following the vision. So that's interesting. Yeah, and again,
You got to call out the sickly ones. That's what a shepherd does. So thinking in terms of truly shepherding a sheep and stuff like that, how would that translate into a more humanistic kind
Sure,
of thing?
right.
How do you do that? Because, that is a job of a shepherd, to call out the ones that are sick or dying or whatever.
right. The thing about the shepherd is that the shepherd will still pursue and try to bring healing, where the prophetic type of person, like, see ya, maybe other types of gifts would react differently as well. But the shepherd was like, you're hurting the flock, but let's keep meeting together. Let's keep working on this. Let's, to the point where they're worn down and, nervous breakdown because they just can't help this person enough. And, they're trying so hard. And when they leave, they cry and they take it on personal. And, that's the bad side. But the good side is when they can redeem them back into the flock, which is their goal. That's the shepherd's goal.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What about the people who aren't in law enforcement but want to call law enforcement on people?
That's again, every gift fits in that. The prophetic person's like, he's breaking the law, come and get him. The shepherd's like, oh, they're hurting their dogs, or they're hurting their kids, or they're drunk, and
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
What about politicians? Like a government?
Ooh, I don't know about that. That lawyers? You're gonna go into lawyers too? Sure, absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. I joke about that. Yeah,
Mayors?
Yeah.
yeah,
Governors,
right,
mayors,
right. Public offenders,
Even the
mayors.
president, if we got
Sure.
a righteous one.
Sure. Even if we don't have a righteous one, because remember, this is not about being Christian. The unrighteous politician still can have a heart to save people. And we actually, it's interesting because if you look at I'll call it the two wings. I'm taking this from Lou Engle. The two wings of our nation is Republican and Democrat. The Democratic Party used to, I don't know if they still do now, but their heart is for the homeless.
Yeah.
And for the outcast and for those who can't get the help.
Definitely
So
not.
they've gone so extreme with all that
Party's changed.
they're not being helpful.
No.
They're more of a detriment, So, and you have the Republicans who are like, we all need to be independent. We know, So there is that side that is still God's heart. And they're from unredeemed people, but their heart's still, man, how are we going to help the homeless? How are we going to help the, the single moms and all that kind of
Right.
stuff? Immigrants,
If you think
perfect
in terms of
example.
that, they would be the immature shepherds, the ones that are the enablers.
Right,
And that's,
exactly.
And that's on either side of the fence.
Yeah.
Right. So the shepherds on here are, yeah,
Oh, well, I was just thinking our parents were, and as parents,
Yeah.
were shepherds of our children,
Right.
our family, and
Yeah.
how we, even just inside our home.
Yep, you're right. And part of the shepherding as a parent, and Stacy and I did this, is the minute our kids were born, we started asking God, what is their gift? And we would raise them up according to their gift, not according to their age or their maturity. But like Keegan, our oldest son, got brought up a lot differently than London and Aiden because of his gift. And London was prophet. We knew right away. So we started trying to raise her up from a prophet so she would be a mature prophet as she grew up and not immature. Aiden is shepherd, you think? I don't remember now what we came up with, but there's the shepherd side of him. So we would teach him, be tender. David's heart was tender. Don't let it get hard-hearted. Don't get cold, because that's what the enemy wants to do. With each gift, he wants to shut you down. So how can the enemy shut a prophet down? How can the enemy shut a shepherd down? Getting hard-hearted. That is a hard thing because it's so easy. And in the end times, we have a prophecy that men's hearts will grow cold. So we figure when we see injustice happen and it doesn't get vindicated, our hearts get hard and we give up. But God needs the shepherd desperately in this time.
Yeah.
So shepherds are known as includers to the core. That's your feeling, to the core. Evangelists are includers too, but it's for the purpose of joining the group. Shepherds are includers because it's the right thing to do. No pressure, no expectations. So, the shepherds act like everyone's a member. And guests, they feel welcome and appreciated. When someone comes in and they're greeted, those guests come in and the shepherds make them feel like they're part of the family and they're loved and they're wonderful and they're accepted, whoever they are. Everyone should feel like they belong. That's their attitude. Everyone should feel like they belong, that they feel a part. They dig into relationships because of friendship helps people stay safe in the fold. That's important. They dig into relationships because friendship helps people stay safe in the fold. They understand the power of relationships.
Is that the fill-in?
That's not the fill-in. The next fill-in's right here. Shepherds notice when others are floundering, hurting, or slowly disappearing. They care, guard, and protect. And there's that police side of the shepherd. They care, guard, and protect. The apostles, we're going to bounce back to the apostles. The apostles are a person who are sent as a pioneer who is innovative, and they set up movements that is scalable. The shepherd is about heart and inclusion. The apostolic is dreaming and building. So the shepherd believes that if everything goes bonkers in the world, if we can just get together and stay together no matter what, we'll be safe. So, you think about these cults that have developed in the past. A lot of them are apostolic, prophet, but there was also the shepherd heart. I watched the documentary on Koresh, and he's a shepherd guy, man. He just was so unbridled and so crazy, but when you see the way he talked, his heart was to care. Yeah, his heart was care, to protect. That protect thing, but we know he got way off crazy and all that kind of stuff. But that's an example. The shepherd can, if not corrected by the other four gifts, they can go off and do some crazy stuff. Not saying the prophets can't either. We have a lot of that happening, apostles and teachers, Next fill-in, they have a great need for cohesion, which is the act of forming
You missed one.
Did I? Oh,
Shepherd in the church.
communally. I'm sorry. Wow, I jumped past that. Well, then, so what happened here?
No, but you should start in contrast.
They love to get to know other people, and they love other people getting to know other people. When speaking about a leadership of the church, we have been most comfortable in receiving the shepherd and the teacher. Having the twofold ministry will not be healthy or cause the church to have a transformational or revolutionary impact we were meant to have. So the shepherd in the church, here's your fill-in. Shepherds desire us to live locally and communally. Shepherds have a desire to live locally and communally. What does that mean, communally? What do you think?
With each other.
Doing life together.
Okay, right.
For sure.
I would agree with Jan. It's definitely live life. We not live in a commune necessarily per se, but we live life literally together. If there's a need, the community does what they can to fill it.
Okay.
Within your community first before you look outside the community.
Okay. How many people kind of feel that in this group? Like, just show me your hands. How many people think that would be great? A little higher so we can just kind of see what's in our hearts. Okay.
Like that we want that, or we think that we're
That we
fostering
that we long for that community thing to develop
Oh,
in
that
our
we
lives.
long.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a.
Well, and not only, and I gotta say, I've been with you guys for a year now, and not only do you guys long for it, but in a lot of ways, you guys actually act it out. So, yeah.
Okay.
Has anyone heard the word kibbutz?
Yes.
You understand what that is?
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, in Israel, there's a lot of kibbutzes that they do live locally within a geographical location, within a matter of a few, next door or a few yards or whatever else, and they have primarily have fences or guarding around that. Look what happened October 7th when they were invaded. Okay, that communities plural, was invaded and things happened. Multiple people got killed, 1,200 people. You know, a couple of them, 100 of them captured and stuff like that. So that type of community is nice. You know,
Right.
I thought about, you know, maybe living in a kibbutz at one time or another. It's a lot harder than it seems like. It really is. I've met several people who live in kibbutzes like,
Sure.
you may not want to do this. You know, it is very, very difficult to live
Share and
in.
care, right.
But you do have to live together, and,
Right.
and people, ideologies, we butt
Right.
heads, we just do.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
a lot
right.
easier said
Can
than
you
done.
live with other people if they view differently than you? If it's
Yes.
not a core value, that's the
Yes.
question. Core values are what you have to stand on. But, you know, if some people believe in something a little bit different than we do with interpretation, let Holy Spirit show them.
Yeah.
They have a great need for cohesion. The act of forming a united whole and the sticking together of particles of the same substance. And unity and harmony. They have a great need for cohesion, unity, and harmony. They don't like intense fellowship. Explains, so they don't like intense fellowship. What do you think that sounds like? They don't like intense fellowship. Shepherds in a room with a bunch of prophets and apostles and evangelists all hanging out, having a meal, talking and debating or having discussions. We'll call them discussions. What do you think that means that they don't like intense fellowship?
Clicks.
Okay. Anybody?
Tension.
Huh?
Tension.
Okay, says the prophet. Yeah, because there's that tension when, like, Carl and I could probably talk about something and sound very intense to everyone else around us, but between us, we're like, yeah, it's cool, man. We go away and we love each other. We're still cool and everything's fine. But it's like, oh, they're going to hate each other because it's the tone of the voice and the intensity that other gifts have that the shepherd's like, whoa, everyone, hey, let's calm down. I'm like, I'm calm, leave me alone.
I'm happy.
Yeah, and they're very uncomfortable in those kinds of situations. Yeah, some may even start crying. Some may leave. You know, I've had little kids that we've known that were prophets. When they start being corrected, they start crying because that shepherd thing's like, oh, this is too intense. Oh, shepherd. Did I say prophet? I'm sorry, I meant shepherd. It's shepherd. So, a shepherd in a congregation, care group leader or champion, for the sake of the relationship, the fill-in, for the sake of the relationship. The greeter, because people should feel loved. Prayer, because people need to feel cared for by laying on of hands and by praying for one another's needs, that kind of thing. So you get that feeling? So the first one, care group leader is relationship. The greeter, there's no fill-in. Prayer is feel cared.
To be cared for.
Feel cared for, right. So if you're a leader, it gives them an opportunity to show the love of God to the masses. Highlight forgiveness, healing, and community. That's basically what all their messages are going to be about. Community, healing, forgiveness, all that kind of stuff. The slogan for a shepherd is love one another. Focus is the community living healthy in the love of Yahweh. It's the community healthy in the love of God. So the core question a shepherd asks when making a decision, here's your fill-in, how will this affect the organization and people in the community? Now we're talking about the shepherd's weaknesses. Shepherds have a tendency not to confront. They can tend to be passive-aggressive, non-missional. They try to be all things to all people, which is how shepherds burn out. Obsessive need for harmony and adverse to taking risks because they don't want to lose anybody in the process, where like an apostolic person is like, let's go. You know, you got lost in the wake? We'll swing back around later and pick you up. They have a hard time challenging people to move forward. They can love to a flaw. And how do you guys think that happens? They can love to a flaw. This is a good discussion, because I think this is what?
Don't want to hurt their feelings,
Right.
so they love them.
They're enablers. They don't tend to say, no, this is wrong, you need to stop doing this.
Okay.
You know, because they want to just keep the peace.
Right. Kathy, what'd you say?
They get abused. It's to their detriment. They get taken advantage of, taken for
Right.
granted.
They get walked all over, they have doormat written on their forehead.
Okay.
Sometimes you need tough love, and they don't do it.
Says the prophet. No shepherd's ever going to say that one, I can tell you. That's no shepherd. Yeah, exactly. And you know, this is why we have a lot of churches that proclaim to be Christian, but they allow a lot of non-biblical activity in their church, and they even justify it. So by taking a look at those kinds of churches, you can probably tell that generally that person leading is probably shepherd, because they don't want to offend or hurt. And there is a struggle. You know, I was really trying to get in touch with my shepherd side today. And I was listening to DC Talk. You guys remember DC Talk? Mm-hmm. And one of the band members has come out to be homosexual, and I don't know if he's following the Lord anymore. And what happens is the shepherd side will say, because I found myself saying this, is that he's still going to be with Yahweh because he acknowledges him, but it's a struggle. See, that's how the shepherd thinks. It's just a struggle. Is it a struggle? We don't know. If someone is struggling with something and they're still trying to follow Yahweh, then that's different than someone says, nope, this is who I am, I'm proud of it, and I'm going to move on. There's a difference. And that's the fine line that the shepherd's always trying to walk in the middle, you know, and it's like, it moves my heart because of the empathy. So I'm thinking about these people who knew Jesus, you know, and they ministered and they touched people's lives, but are they struggling with it, or are they just giving in to it? And that's the shepherd struggle. You know, the shepherd will try to find something in somebody's life. Well, yeah, see, they're struggling with it, so it's okay. And they may not be. And that's to the fault of the shepherd. Questions or comments on that?
You know, somewhere in the scripture, I can't remember who it was, talks about a sheep who gets away, and that the shepherd's supposed to break its leg and care for it. Okay?
If it keeps
So
doing
that's
that.
the one that got away and talked to the parable. Okay, that Yeshua talks about. He went after the one instead of the 99.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so did it hurt the sheep? Yeah, it did. But he also cared for it.
Okay, now what did you say to that response? When he said you break the legs, what did you say?
He went away more than one time.
Right, if he keeps doing it.
Yeah, if he
That's the
keeps doing it,
shepherd
then he
thing.
breaks his leg.
That's the shepherd thing. We're going to
But
keep
he'll
trying.
put it
We're
on
not going to
the
break his leg yet. Come on back. Let's keep
No.
trying. Let's
Definitely.
sometimes to a detriment. The shepherd has to be around the other gifts to know, okay, we love this person and we feel for you, but it's time. As Loretta shakes her head, yes.
See, that's where a shepherd has to learn to be mature, that the other half
That's
of that
right.
is not just enabling and caring for, but you have to be proactive in
Right.
stopping it from happening again and again.
One of the key things we have to change our mindset is when we're talking about a mature apostle, prophet, shepherd, we're thinking about maturity in ourselves like, well, I can see things correctly and I can make the right decisions. The only thing that maturity means in this context is that we can listen to the other giftings and let that influence us to a healthy outcome. It doesn't mean we know everything. It means I'm mature enough to know that I can be way too far out there sometimes for caring. So I'm going to listen to what the prophet has to say, or the apostle, or the teacher. That's the maturity we're talking about. Because we look in this Western culture of maturity, yes, I have my PhD in shepherding. You know, it's not like that. Okay, you guys ever heard of the Dunbar Rule?
No.
The Dunbar Rule states that relational networks are maxed out at between 120 to 150 people. That means I can only efficiently know 150 people to 120 to 150 people efficiently. I said that word twice. I know you want to correct me on my language there.
Out of how
Just
many people
thinking-
did you say? 100?
120 to 150.
120 people.
I know.
I maxed out way below that.
Yeah, well, now I thought about that too, because I have probably about 53 clients in my caseload where I work as a social worker, and I cannot remember one from another. I can remember their names sometimes or their faces. I went to one client and says, "How's your kids?" He said, "I don't have any kids." Are you sure? I was trying to cover my tracks. I think you do. You just don't know.
Maybe they're thinking you're a prophet.
Yeah, right? Right, yeah. So it's like, I had 53. I can't imagine 120, 150.
It's like if you think about it, you're in a church of about 120 people, you can know who those people are. Like if you're in that space with them for a long time,
Yeah.
like if you're in a work environment, you probably know 120 people and their name in your life. But then you just like.
So you mean
it's
that
a
just
rule.
by, you know they exist and you. And
Yeah, you know their
And
names
a
and.
couple things about them,
Yeah.
but
My
not
number's
intimate.
more closer to 10.
We
Hi,
have,
my name is Mom.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
We have yeah, Glenn?
I had a graduating class about that size in high school. We just had a reunion, about a year ago, and it was amazing. We all knew each other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's about the limit. Then other people call it, high schools where the graduating class was 1,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't know.
Mine
all
was
those people.
500.
You can't know all those people.
No.
Yeah.
And what's worse is, kind of a sidebar, is the pastor that Stacy and I worked under for quite a while, and love the guy. He's in Florida now. But he told us last time we were working under him, he said that the older you get, the smaller your friend circle gets.
Yeah.
So now,
Personal.
yeah, personal. So you're talking about, like you said, 10. That's probably about right. That's comfortable. So how do we, like you think about the pastor of the church who's been dubbed the shepherd, who has a church of 150, 100, 200 people. So much pressure's on him. I'm just not surprised when these pastors fall, because they have so much of this performance thing. And shepherds are people pleasers. That's really a struggle too. So the pastor gets in there, they're calling me a shepherd. I want to please everybody. I want to make them all happy. And you can't do it. You can't do it.
How is it for people who, I'm not on social media, I'll let you know that. I don't do the Facebook and X and Twitter. I don't do none of that stuff. I'm kind of below that radar. But how is it for people who have virtually thousands and thousands of followers and friends and everything else? How does that work out? Not very well.
Not very well. They don't.
Because I'm not on social media. I don't want to be on social
It's
media.
just a platform for you
No.
to speak and these 1,000 people listen to you.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
platform to focus on yourself. Every single one of them. That's all they have, a platform for self.
But even at that, if you are on social media, how many people can you really connect with and really have a relationship? There's a professional LinkedIn.
Oh, what?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, and you're supposed to, how many people do you contact? It's, recruiters use it a lot, but who do you contact? Ideally, you'd have all these connections to people and all that kind of stuff, but you can't efficiently keep that many people connected and have a relationship. There are people who've got like thousands of connections, but they don't know any of them. I turn down some. I get a lot of requests because people are. I say, I've got to have some sort of relationship before I will connect with, officially connect with you. I mean, I've got to know your name and I've got to know what you're doing. Just because you say hi, I want to be your friend, is not enough. And so there's a limit to how many interactions you can do, even on social media.
Yeah, I'd like to take a look at Jesus' success with the multitudes. And we think about that. You think God on the earth, everyone and their mother would be following him, right? He started out with 12, then he had 70. They all left. And by the end of the game, there was still back to 12. God of the whole universe only chose to disciple 12. And look at the impact of that. We get caught up in numbers in the Greek mind. We think, more's better, bigger's great, but it's not the case. If you can highly influence 12 people and they change the world, that's good. Who needs 100? So what do you think the shepherd brings to the church? If we have a healthy church, we have 5 gifts operating together. What is the value of a shepherd in a church?
Peacemaker.
Okay,
Brings a sense of family.
right?
Meal train initiator.
Yep.
Meal train initiator,
Yeah,
okay.
consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. What else?
Well, I think of like Psalms 23 when David is saying, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. If you look up what a
Yes.
shepherd's
Yes.
staff does, I mean, that's what guides the sheep around the turns.
Right.
And when a sheep falls into the water, he uses the hook to pull them out of the water. And so when you look at the Psalm 23 definition of what David is talking about, what the Lord is doing for him.
Right.
And when you look at that in your shepherd, that's kind of, he's taking you around the turns and he's helping you get out of the
Yep.
water when you're neck deep and,
Yep.
you know,
That's really incredible that you said that, because this morning I was praying. I felt like I wanted to look at Psalm 23. I thought, no, that's pretty heavy for just a person to do. But it's the image of that is what they bring to the church. You know, Yahweh is my shepherd, I shall not want. They have no need. It's hard for a person, but that's the idea behind a healthy shepherd in the church, right? He leads me beside the still waters. He covers my head with oil. He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Think about people who come in who are really struggling with things. The shepherd will make sure that they're comforted, that they're being vindicated. You know, we have a little situation with Susan right now, and we're praying for vindication. That's the shepherd heart. You know, so when a shepherd comes in, the main thing they bring is love and acceptance. So when there's a shepherd in our midst, we feel like we're loved no matter who we are, no matter how many times we fail. We're accepted. And it spreads. It's not just everyone go to that shepherd. If you're feeling tired, you go talk to that person. No, it kind of leaks on everyone else. And that's what we need to have. We don't have enough love yet, but we're working on it.
You can also see where it says his rod and his staff. Comfort me.
Right.
Exactly.
Staff, okay? His rod showing power, and this is virtually the 2 folds of Yeshua himself coming as a shepherd, and also in the future be the King of Kings.
Mm-hmm.
But the rod and staff have another issue too, or another meaning, okay, is a type of discipline. So a shepherd would also tell somebody, okay, you need to straighten up and fly right, but they do it in such a way that the person accepts it and can accept it in love. You know, okay, yeah, I'm doing this wrong, so I've got to stop doing this if I'm going to heal, kind of a thing. A shepherd knows when to use the rod and the staff in love,
Only because there's a healthy 5-fold.
right?
Yeah.
the rod was not to strike the sheep. The rod was to strike the wolves and the lions and
Right,
the bears that
right.
were coming at
Right.
the sheep.
Right. Right. The rod was not really to hit the sheep. The way the rod was shaped, the noose would fit around their neck perfectly, so you could pull them along where they didn't want to go, but they knew was best for them.
Right.
That's why they
Okay.
were coming.
Right.
They saw
Right.
that rod and they knew
Right.
the shepherd had the
Right.
back.
Right.
So what would the church look like? Last thing, then we'll be done. If a church was strictly shepherds, what would that church look like?
Most of the churches out there today.
Lori just said a mess, which, you know, that's what I would have said too. So what do you guys think? Like, let's give more description to what would a shepherd church look like. How would the people respond? What would be their views? Huh?
It looked like a stockyard. You know, all these people all crammed in together and more and more and more. And then, you know.
Woodstock. Lovey-dovey.
Yeah.
Okay.
All kumbaya.
Would you think there'd be a lot of compromise in that church, possibly?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that there are a lot of people who would like to go to that church?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They wouldn't stay long.
Everybody but the shepherd wouldn't stay long. The prophets would be out of there in first meeting. The apostolic people would be like, nope, see ya. The evangelist might stick around because he's like, well, let's bring more people in. This is great. I'm feeling it. But then later on, they'll realize this is all just about love, and we're not really getting people out there. The teacher probably would be very frustrated as well because the pastor or the lead guy is saying, hey, I want you to teach on this. And the teacher's like, No, we got to teach on some foundational things to get these people growing up. What do you mean grow up? They're all great. They all love each other.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. There's the shepherd.